against the US dollar. Watch this space. From Naharnet, bank suspends open-ended strike a day before Ramadan. Lebanon's struggling banks resumed work Wednesday on the occasion of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. After a day of protests and sharp currency swings, the Association of Banks announced Tuesday night that all lenders in the country will suspend the strike and resume work Wednesday. Last month, Lebanese commercial banks went on an open-ended strike after the Lebanese Court of Cassation overturned a 2022 verdict in favor of Fransa Bank, sued by two depositors demanding their money in cash. Later that month, angry protesters smashed windows and set tires on fire outside two of the country's biggest banks in Badara. On Tuesday, protesters closed down major roads in parts of the country, including the main north-south highway, as well as others in Beirut and the eastern Bekaa Valley, after the Lebanese pound briefly hit a new low. Later on Tuesday, the central bank said it would be selling the US dollar for £90,000 and called on banks to end their strike and take part in the sale. After the statement was issued, the pound regained some of its value, selling for £110,000 to the dollar. The crash of the pound came days before the start of Ramadan. Situation's very bad, especially with the rise of the dollar. You cannot buy anything here, said Beirut President Essam Reyes about the rising prices of food products. The striking banks had reopened their doors in late February following caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati's request. And from the cradle, U.S.-Saudi row pushes Lebanon to the brink. Uncertainties growing in Lebanon to the U.S. reportedly issued a warning to local allies about siding with Saudi Arabia behind Washington's back. Lebanon entered a new stage of calamity on 20 March as the Lebanese lira seesawed between 110,000 Lebanon pounds and 140,000 Lebanon pounds per U.S. dollar. Worker associations launched strikes across the country, and large protests that started in the northern city of Tripoli began to spread to the capital, Beirut, in response to rising fuel prices, medicine shortages, and inaction from the political class. In the late afternoon, the lira exchange rate stabilized after central bank governor Riyad Salameh announced that the institution would sell unlimited amounts of US dollars. Arabic media reports suggest Tuesday's chaotic developments as are a result of a tug-of-war happening behind closed doors between Lebanon's latest foreign aid donors, Saudi Arabia, and the US. It was sparked by the Iran-Saudi rapprochement deal brokered by China. According to diplomatic sources that spoke with Lebanese Daily Al-Akhbar this week, Washington gave a choice to its allies, including political leaders Samir Jiejia, Walid Jumblat, and several independent members of parliament, between backing the U.S. or Saudi Arabia. To this end, the U.S. Embassy reminded the officials that Western financial aid, a long-anticipated IMF loan, and the start of a gas extraction from an offshore field are all deals that would only move forward with the U.S., not Saudi help. Communique also said that the White House trusts the Saudis with some interest in the region, but that these interests can't be jeopardized by its growing rift, and stressed that an Irani-Saudi settlement that alleviates pressure on Hezbollah could become a threat to U.S. national security in the White House's eyes. Last November, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs Barbara Leaf warned that the situation in Lebanon is open to all possible negative outcomes, including a complete disintegration of the state and the collapse of its security forces. She said that Lebanese will likely have to endure more pain before forming a new government, adding that collapse will enable Lebanon somehow to be rebuilt from the ashes, freed from the curse of Hezbollah. In response to Washington's latest moves inside Lebanon, the director of the Middle East office at the British Foreign Ministry was reportedly told by Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan that the deal announced in Beijing is the beginning of a Saudi-Iran rapprochement and not the culmination of an agreement on contentious matters. The kingdom's top diplomat also stressed to the British official that priorities between Riyadh and Tehran differ at this stage in the talks, with the kingdom placing an emphasis on Yemen and regional affairs, while the Islamic Republic is focused on opening embassies and Hajj visas. Bin Farhan's statement coincided with a report from Kuwaiti news outlet Al Jaridai, which revealed that a delegation from Oman has been visiting Lebanon in recent weeks for discussion with Hezbollah officials over the need for the party to withdraw from Yemen and not to interfere there. The Kuwaiti news outlet also revealed that an official Qatari delegation visited Lebanon in recent days to meet with several officials in parliamentary blocs to discuss means to exit the Lebanon crisis and offer the necessary assistance to end the presidential vacuum and to lay the groundwork for possible Saudi-Qatari announcement in Lebanon. Saudi Arabia is reportedly also looking to hold a new round of talks with France over the crisis in Lebanon. Since 2019, Lebanon witnessed the collapse of its institutions. Following decades of corruption and mismanagement by the financial sector, the crisis plunged over 80% of the population below the poverty line. Despite the urgency of the situation, Lebanon's political class has failed to take any action to help its citizens. Since last October's election, the country's been under the control of a caretaker government with no president, as rival alliances in parliament refuse to compromise on candidate. And from GlobeEcho.com, the difference in the exchange rate of the lira exacerbates the suffering of the Lebanese. When Caroline Kasparian Sadaka goes shopping in the capital Beirut, she keeps her mobile phone close at hand not to check her shopping list, but to calculate the escalating cost of goods that are now priced at a volatile exchange rate, which vary by store and sector. With the continued collapse of the Lebanese economy, a set of different exchange rates for the Lebanese pound emerged, further complicating personal accounts and weakening hope that the reform requirements set by the IMF could be accomplished. And the official exchange rate was adjusted to 15,000 pounds against the dollar last February, and a 90% decrease in the value of the Lebanese currency compared to the previous official rate, which lasted for a long time at 1,507.5 pounds. However, the Banque du Liban sells the dollar at 79,000 pounds, while the Minister of Finance intends to calculate the customs tariff for imported goods based on the price of 45,000 pounds per dollar. At the same time, the exchange rate in the parallel market ranges around 107,000 pounds to the dollar and changes daily. Supermarkets and gas stations are required to post signs with the approved exchange rate each day, but the exchange rate quickly changes, so many of these places price products in relatively stable dollars. As she examines a can of tuna, Caroline explains the daily dilemma faced by shoppers. Honestly, it's strange that everything is priced in dollars and I have to calculate it 83 times to know the price in Lebanese pounds, referring to an exchange rate of 83,000 pounds to the dollar. She says, "It's just weird. It's the first time this happens. It's confusing that this, let's say, doesn't have a price," she adds. "If you look at the bottom, it's in lira. Is the price 95,000 or not? This is an old price, and now there's a price in dollars." Caroline resigned from a job as a teacher at a school where she was paid in the local currency, which has depreciated more than 98% against the dollar on the parallel market since 2019. That was when the economy began to crumble after decades of disorderly fiscal policies and alleged corruption. To solve the confusion caused by the exchange rate, the government should implement a unified rate. This is one of the preconditions set by the International Monetary Fund nearly a year ago for Lebanon to receive a $3 billion rescue package. But the fund, the country's last resort, says reforms are too slow. The reforms have met resistance from politicians who seek to protect vested interests and impunity. At the same time, the country was moving towards an economy based on liquid cash and dollars in light of rising inflation, and restrictions imposed by banks on transactions. Shopkeeper named Mahmoud al-Shar said the exchange rate was changing so quickly that his shop was losing money overnight. Like many shopkeepers, al-Shar needs to pay in dollars when importing goods, but he sells in pounds. And one day, he had sold all his goods on the basis of one exchange rate, but he woke up the next day to find the price of the dollar had jumped by nearly 10,000 pounds. The economist Samir Nasser pointed out that the varying exchange rates in various sectors make personal accounting chaotic for the Lebanese, adding that unifying the exchange rate has become more urgent than ever. From thenationalnews.com, Lebanon Central Bank announces open sale of dollars at a rate of 90,000. Measures latest attempt to curb devaluation of free-falling national currency. Lebanon Central Bank on Tuesday said it would sell unlimited US dollars at a discounted rate of 90,000 liras on its safe Rafah platform in yet another attempt by the embattled financial institution to prop up the spiraling currency. The Bank du Liban, BDL, announces an open and continuous process to buy Lebanese banknotes and sell dollars for cash at an exchange rate of 90,000 for every dollar. Central Bank Governor Riyad Salama said. Following the central bank's announcement, the Lebanese pound recouped some value, trading at 150,000 to the dollar by late afternoon. By midday on Tuesday, the currency had plummeted to an unprecedented 140,000 pounds to the greenback on the black market, having devalued by 20,000 since the morning. The public can exchange Lebanese pounds through banks or licensed Category A money exchangers and will receive dollars within 3 days. Lebanon's commercial banks began an open-ended strike in February to protest against a number of legal actions taken against them. Banks that return from their strike can participate in the process, that statement added. Financial experts who spoke to The National warned that BDL's move to provide unlimited dollars would in fact be limited by the bank's refusal to reopen and would lead to a rush on money exchangers in the interim. BDL's move is completely absurd, Jean Riashi, a senior banker and chairman of FFA Private Bank Dubai Limited, told The National. It's very futile. It'll stop the acceleration for a while, but each time this move works less and less, he said. It won't last. There's no real solutions. The crumbling financial institutions attempted similar measures in the past, all of which have proven to be temporary stopgaps. Less than a month ago, on March 1st, the central bank had the rate for Rafah, the institution's exchange platform, at 70,000 Lebanese pounds to the dollar, but the move was not enough to stop the currency's rapid devaluation. The updated Rafah rates yet another measure to play on the psychology of the market, but in fact, technically, it worsens things, said Mr. Riachi, who added that it also has an adverse effect on the dollar-lira parity. Lebanon's currency has lost more than 98% of the value since the pound, pegged at 1,500 to the dollar for nearly 30 years, first unpegged from the greenback and began its descent, heralding the onset of the country's economic crisis in 2019. From KRDO.com, protests in Lebanon as pound hits new low against dollar. Protesters have closed down major roads in parts of Lebanon against the Lebanese pound, briefly hit a new low amid a historic economic crisis that seemingly has no end in sight. The Lebanese pound Tuesday lost more than 15% of its value, dropping to more than 140,000 pounds to the dollar. A week ago, the dollar was worth 100,000 pounds. The small nation's in the grips of the worst economic and financial crisis in its modern history, and it's rooted in decades of corruption and mismanagement by a political class that's ruled the country since the end of the 1975-90 Civil War. The political class has resisted the implementation of reforms demanded by the international community. Arab states condemn Israeli minister's "No Palestinians" remark. Israel's far-right National Security Minister Bezalel Smotrich says there isn't a Palestinian people. Oh, excuse me. Actually, let's just pause for a moment and watch this space. Remember, your engagement through a like, share, and a sub will accelerate us at warp speed towards the continuation of our mission to truthfully go where no news will have been going before.